been that way all of your life, oh mother. I want to help you, but I don't know just what to do. Someone tell me what to do, oh mother. I waited too long, and I don't know how they're gonna help you, mother. I waited too long, oh my mother, oh mother, oh mother. I see you lying there, so still that it makes me scared, oh mother. I want to help you, but I don't know just what to do. Can't you show me what to do, oh mother? I waited too long, and now they're putting you in the ground. I waited too long, oh my mother, oh mother, oh mother, oh mother.
Hey, folks. Hopefully you can all hear everything okay. Tell me in the chat if everything is sounding and looking okay. Put a 1 or something in the chat so I know that all that's working. We got a great show lined up for you tonight. This is a different show for me. I usually don't have guests on, but we're going to try something different tonight. So hopefully you guys are into it. I've got a really special guest tonight, and we're going to go over quite a bit of material. We're going to try to get through it in the hour. We've got a lot of stuff to go back in time on and discuss. And we'll also be taking your questions. Again, most of my audience or whatever knows that I played in a band called Smeer back in the day, which some days it feels like it was yesterday, and some days it feels like it was a different lifetime. So hopefully you guys get to get a grasp of what Smeer was all about and what we did and kind of the vibe that we lived through, because it was a pretty special time in our lives anyway. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get to the chat a little bit later today because we don't want to waste too much time. We want to get right to the topic at hand. We're going to be talking about Smeer. If you have any questions for me or my guest, you can put them in the chat. You guys know the drill. Just put an @ before my name, 6-string Brian. It'll come up in orange. I'll see it right away. But maybe hold off on the questions for maybe like halfway through the show, and then you can start posting them. Then we'll get to them as soon as we can. We'll try to get through everything, and if we can't, then we might have a second show some other time down the road. So without any more delay, let me see if I can bring in our guest here, a very special guest. And just give me 1 second, and let's do this. Hey, Neil, can you hear me?
Hello.
There we go. Hopefully you guys can hear Neil. Neil is like a brother. we went through quite the experience together for about a 10-year run there. It was a special time in our lives. Neil is a great drummer, musician, based out of Toronto, and is still in Toronto in quarantine, or not quarantine, but lockdown, I guess, right? Yeah, like everybody else.
Toronto specifically, yeah. Toronto is there's not much you can do in the city. Lots of things are closed. There's lots of rules, but until we get this thing figured out, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that everybody's in the same boat. So anyway, we wanted to kind of get together, Neil and I, as we would do this anyway, talk about old times. So we figured we'd do this live on the internet and let you folks kind of. Yeah, let you folks listen into it and get a grasp of what we went through anyway. So anyway, I'm going to just run a quick little clip so those of you who don't know or have not seen Neil in action or myself as a bass player, because most of you know me as a guitar player now, but as a bass player. So maybe we'll have a quick look at a clip here and we'll get into the rest of the show. So let me just do that. So this is a live clip. I believe it was 2004, 2003, right, Neil? Around that time?
Whenever I wasn't wearing shirts, yeah.
All right. So this was a live clip, and it was actually a live show we did here in Grand Falls, where I'm located now. So quite the circle back that I ended up back in my hometown after all these years, and some of our best shows were right here in this part of the world. So let's have a quick look and listen to this clip. We won't play the whole clip, but it'll give you kind of a sense of what the band was all about, and live was really where I think we shined as a performing act. So here we go. Let's have a quick listen. There you go. A little blast from the past there for you, Neil.
Sweet.
Yeah. Let me go back to our 2-up shot here. Cool. Yeah. So Neil, we met up back in I guess it would have been 1999, 2000. Smeer was a band already, and myself and the guitar player joined it with some other members that were already established as a cover band at that point. And maybe a year into that project, the drummer and guitarist decided that they didn't want to do originals and wanted to kind of slow down on the gigging, didn't want to do as much gigging. And myself and the guitarist really wanted to take it that next step. So we went out and got a singer, Ryan, and we put out an ad in the local classifieds in Toronto where Neil answered for the drummer position. Do you remember that time, Neil, when you saw that ad and showed up and saw us, New Brunswick, Toronto folks that came from New Brunswick all sitting in this rehearsal room waiting to see you and to meet you?
I do. And it's, I have a bit of a background story. Prior to my joining, I had taken my drums up to some rehearsal area with a guy that I'd worked with in the 90s. I'd left my drums there for like 2 years. He had this spot and we just didn't jam very much, and I wasn't really bothered about it. You know, life kind of takes different twists and turns. My buddy Scott Cleary, who actually lives out in PEI now, so he's out your way, he said, come to this jam. We do this jam on the Danforth, which literally is around the corner from where I live now, but the bar isn't there anymore. But it was called the Rio at one point, and Rod Clark from Crazy Babies had a jam there, and Scott Cleary was part of the house band. And they had a drummer that wasn't working out, and Scott said, come down, just jam, and if the guy that's running the jam, his name was Joe, if Joe likes you, you might be able to get some. And I thought, okay, whatever, why not, right? So I went there, I played half a dozen songs, and then this guy Joe said, hey man, you want to come back next week and be like our drummer? And I said, sure. He said, but only for next week. I said, okay. So I come and I bring my stuff for the first time, and he gives me the gig. And then I don't have the gig. He's asking me for a special one spot, and then he's like, can you come back next week after the gig ended? And he kept doing this. He wouldn't tell me I'm in the band, but eventually I started putting my drums in the basement instead of back in my car because I knew he was going to ask me to come back the next week. And then I ended up being in that band. And that was really my introduction to getting back into music after I had let it go for some time.
And then when you answered our ad, we were playing mostly cover songs at that point, and very much 90s based rock and roll, and for the college crowd, you would say, right? And soon after you joined, we already had the discussions of, well, what if we went as an original act, but kept a lot of covers, still played the gigs and made some money, playing covers, but focused on writing originals and stuff. When you joined the band, were you expecting that? Because knowing you were joining a cover band, and within probably a few months of joining, we were already talking about doing originals. And was that something that kind of caught you off guard?
I honestly thought that ship had sailed for me some time ago, because I had been in, before this kind of comeback into music, I'd done the Ontario and I even moved to Vancouver and did I toured all over Canada. I was in a band called Romance at 11 once upon a time. We had a big truck. We slept in the vehicle. We We played, all the best bars in Winnipeg, the Zoo, in Vancouver, Club Soda. David Lee Roth. Okay, here's a good story for you, just off the cuff. David Lee Roth was in town recording in Vancouver, and Club Soda was the place to be as far as the clubs. David Lee Roth was there, and just a scrum of girls around him. You couldn't even see the guy. There was just this scrum. It looked like a football huddle. And anyway, his drummer at the time was Greg Bissonette, and Greg Bissonette was there, and Greg didn't have the adulation that Dave had. Greg jammed with my band Romance at 11, and normally when you let another drummer, you get off the stage. I said, no way. If Greg Bissonette's playing my drums, I sat on the back of my riser and was like 2 feet away from that guy, watching him play my drums. And boy, he smacked the crap out of them. But that was a great memory. And, at that point, I realized, music was, we traveled across Canada 5 or 6 times. We went to Vancouver Island. We played where the ferry leaves for Newfoundland. I covered an awful lot of ground in this country. I've been to every little tiny town in, Alberta, Winnipeg, you name it. But that was where you cut your teeth, and you learn how to be a good player, So all those experiences have enriched who I am and how I've gotten to here and how I got to Smeer,
Right. And that's one thing that a lot of folks don't know is, well, the musicians do, but the hard work it takes and all the hours that are not those glamour hours that people think they are. And here's your couple hours on stage, but the rest of that time is a lot of work, a lot of sometimes frustrations with certain situations you're put into or not. And, knowing as you are as a touring musician, trying to make it, it's quite the journey. But if you're doing it with folks or people that you really, gel with, it can be quite the life experience. And that's what I got from Smeer, was the people like yourself, Ryan and Denny, that were a real, tightly knit family as far as who we were chemistry wise as a band. So it made that experience quite, enjoyable, but a lot of work in itself as well. And for the 10-year run that Smeer had, it was quite, very enlightening as far as what the music business was, meeting, because we did have, we had a couple of record deals, as yourself, they were the independent types of record deal. We had a company from New York that signed us, and we had a company back in, it was called Lion Music, I believe, in Europe, that signed the band, and basically were distribution deals more than anything, but they did put some money into the recording sessions, which helped a lot, got us into Metalworks Studios, which is a huge studio in Toronto or Mississauga, and gave us that experience that we probably, we might have had regardless of those companies or those people that believed in the band, but it was a nice boost to get us to that level at that point and give us that experience. So let's talk about the studio experience. So we went from being a cover band to starting to write originals to actually stepping foot in a small little studio to do an EP. If you remember, the first one was just kind of the guy had this in his house or something, a little studio, and we went in and recorded that 5-song EP. And it turned out pretty good. And then we started kind of shopping it around to see who would be interested in maybe doing something with the band. And we met this guy in Woodbridge that had a full-fledged studio, and he was tied with a company like, I believe, who was a Coalition that was the agents for Our Lady Peace.
Arnold Lanny. And I've read about Arnold recently. He's, he's, if anybody knows Sheriff and that song Baby, it's like, that's a whole great story in itself. The whole, I don't want to get off track too much, but that song was released on Canadian radio, was a mild Canadian hit. Some LA radio station got a hold of it 13 years later, and it turned into a huge international hit and put Arnold Lanny and Sheriff on the map. But at that point, I think he was, what was the Frozen Ghost was his next band.
Right.
By the time that single had caught traction, he was already, the Sheriff wasn't even happening. He was in Frozen Ghost. But anyway, we're getting off track here. But Dom was a friend of Arnold's, and I think Arnold was involved in telling him to, to work with us and to see if this band can get a distribution deal and so on and so forth. So it was all those things were happening.
Those connection points were very important, and the way they kind of transpired. But to me, the studio experience that on that level, working with a producer and stuff, was something very eye-opening, because it wasn't something that I was completely used to, because I had a hard time letting go of certain things. If you write a song, you have a deep connection to that song, and you don't want to change things up. And working with a producer, the producer comes in and says, well, let's do the chorus here, and let's take out this verse and do this. So in the long run, it was the right decision, and to let Dom take the reins on that and really do what he did best, was produce, and for us to take that feedback and be, as a collective, working together and not against each other. So, but it was, I won't lie, it wasn't easy at first for me to go into that process and to kind of let go the reins a little bit and say to the producer, we trust in what you're doing, and let's put these songs together and work together. How was your experience with that? Had you been in the studio with a producer prior to Smeer?
Yeah, let me think about, I guess not to that level. I'm trying to think if Romance at 11 was a band that, again, that was a band that was touring across Canada. We had label interest from Attic Records. Pi Dubois from Kim Mitchell fame had co-written a song or two with Mark, the lead singer in the band. The band, it was a fabulous band. I mean, the energy on stage was electric. The talent was there. I remember, Attic Records were interested. There was a lot of people that were, testing the waters, if you like. And I was optimistic that the band was going to get something, whether it be a support tour with, a Max Webster or maybe those names are too big, but that's what, especially when Pi Dubois is involved and he's connected with Kim Mitchell, writing songs with you. You think, all these connections might lead to something. We had Helix's light system that was on loan to us. It was kind of like these two spaceship kind of pods that were connected by all these chrome. I mean, it was really cool. And the band, wherever we went, we just owned it. Mark Cristiano, lead singer, was a fantastic front man. He knew how to work the audience. He knew what song, like the set list was never the same 2 days in a row. Never. He just pulled the songs out. Like it was just, but that was the really cool thing about it. And being in a very structured environment, this band was really serious. Like we weren't allowed to drink on stage. It wasn't that we couldn't, it wasn't about not having a beer. It was about the professionalism that they want to display, that we're not going to take a sip of a beer, even if it's only one beer. It's not about the guy drinking 12 beers. It was just no alcohol on stage, no alcohol before gigs. It was just very structured that
very
way
serious,
because
yeah.
we just knew that this thing could be earmarked for bigger things. What was whole different about Smear, getting back to Smear, was here, like Romance 11 was this band that was on the runway and speeding up on the runway, and you thought this thing's going to take off anytime. Like we're almost here, right? Like it's like, before, at that point in my life, I thought this is as close as I'm going to get to this thing happening, and then it didn't, and I, it kind of fell apart. But this was when we were heading into the early '90s, and the scene had changed, and Nirvana and everything had changed it. We weren't the kind of product all of a sudden that was going to sell you 1 million albums. We were when we first started in '89, '90, but the closer we got into the early '90s, it took a different twist. So, I think Smear was hitting the market at the right time. We didn't even know when we were kind of first coming out of the market that we were in that vein of what was happening. You know what I mean? So when I joined you guys as a cover band, I couldn't have foreseen that it would turn into this original thing, and we'd be on the cutting edge and competing with bands like 3 Days Grace and some other bands like that were in and around, doing what we were doing. And and trying to get to that next stage.
Right. Yeah, it was a different time, obviously, because of we were just in that switch between that grunge time in the 90s into that new metal, I guess they would call it, with Disturbed and Godsmack and all these bands coming out. And we kind of fit in that genre. But we also, if you listen to the songs that we wrote, yeah, there was a lot of that in it, but there was also a different vibe altogether with some of the songs that we were writing, that kind of, because Ryan did come from that 80s metal background, but also had a huge, he was influenced by bands like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and that era as well. So his writing was very much dynamic in the way that it was heavy, and it touched on very serious subjects, but had a little bit of different ingredients in it that made it what it was, as far as how the songs turned out. Musically, myself and Denny were very much similar in the way that we liked, hard driving rock that had very good riffs in them and that had a groove to the music and stuff. So everything kind of really blended. And then when you joined as a drummer, you had that feel and that chemistry with us on stage. It was like the energy was there. So it was that right place at the right time moment for that beginning part, for sure.
Here's a question for you. Had you auditioned other drummers prior to me, or I honestly can't remember if you tried more guys out than just me.
From what I recall, I think we had one other guy come in the week before you came in, and that was the only guy we had auditioned. And I don't know really why it just didn't, we weren't blending. It didn't really fit for what we were looking for, as far as, it's kind of one of those things when you get into a room with people and you start jamming, you can tell the chemistry if it's going to work or not. And that was one of those things where we didn't feel it was going to work. And after you came in, everything was really gelling at that point. So we didn't pursue anybody else, even though that there was other people that had answered our ad and said, I can come on this date or this date, but you were next in line. Once we got you, then we basically decided this is the way we were going to go. And, that was the right decision, absolutely, for us to do. So so I'm glad we did that.
You kind of have to say that at this point, don't you?
Oh God. So, but the one of the things that Smeer had a couple of run-ins with some famous people, as far as when we were playing live, we would play all over the place. So we played in Ontario a lot, but one of the gigs we played at this really small bar in Hamilton, Whiskey Joe's, I think was the name of it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So that we were there one night, and there was a guy in the audience, Daniel. What was his last name?
McMaster.
Yes. And for those who don't know who Daniel McMaster is, he was the singer for the band Bonham and played with, Jason Bonham, right? And he was there that night and wanted to come up and jam with us. So if you remember, he came up and
he did a Cult song. I remember a Cult song. And
he also sang a Zeppelin song, because he was used to playing Zeppelin music with Bonham.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So I think he did rock and roll, and I believe we might have done Black Dog, but I know rock and roll was one of them. But he was right into it. I don't know if you remember on stage, he was jumping up and down. He was like playing at the LA Forum for all we knew, and we were up there with this guy just going, I can't believe this guy's even here at Whiskey Joe's in this small bar in Hamilton. So that run-in was kind of an interesting take.
Was that the first time we'd met him?
I believe so, and I don't know. I think you knew him, or somebody. Met
Bruce,
him.
Bruce Caldwell.
Yes. So
Bruce and Danny were connected, and I honestly don't remember the sequence of events. But I think Danny. Yeah, and then Danny wanted to be like an MC at like a couple of future gigs that we did. He wanted to be like. But I loved him. His enthusiasm was infectious, and it's unbelievable that he's not on this planet anymore. But his energy and enthusiasm. Obviously you can see how that guy made it. From being an Ontario circuit band, and then got discovered, and to get to play with a name like Bonham, I mean, come on, it's like
Yeah.
that's a dream come true for an Ontario guy, right?
And he was a great singer. He had the pipes and he knew what to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I want to let's talk a little bit about Smeer as we were going through the process of writing songs, and then we've got we wanted to do videos. Obviously, as a band, you had to have a video as part of your marketing strategy. Back then, we were only getting started with internet stuff, back in, what was it, from 2000? Well, the band itself was 98 to 2007, I think, is the Smeer legacy, or that the time period where Smeer existed. But we wanted to venture into the video world. So I'm going to play, I'm just going to go here and we're going to play maybe a couple of clips from some of the videos that we did. These were professionally shot videos. Some were pretty interesting. The first one was from a track that we had won a songwriting competition that we had sent in with the song Mother. I don't know if you remember that. We had sent that in the States, and we had some pretty big names judging that. I believe Rob Thomas from Matchbox 20 was one of the judges. And if you won that competition, you won some money, and I think we won like some gear, part of a PA system. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was part of the package. And we had won the rock song category, or we were number 2, or there was top 3. We were in. Do you remember
what the name? Do you remember what the name of that contest was?
It was International Songwriting Competition. We had sent that in, and it was an industry thing in the States, and it was all the big names that were kind of judging that. And Mother won part of that competition. So that's the song we chose as our first single when we released our first album, and then we decided to do the video. So let me play a little clip of that video here, and then we'll talk about the process of how we did that video. So let me just go back here, and I'll just bring up that screen again, and I'll just find the video. So I'll just play a little clip of it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is not it. Sorry.
Oops. Yeah.
Wrong song. But we did record that too, and that was an interesting story for that song. But let's have a look at Mother here.
Okay.
Doctors call today. I don't believe a word they say, oh mother. Ignore their advice. It's been that way all of your life, oh mother. I want to tell me what to do, oh mother. I waited too long, and I don't know how they're gonna help you, mother. I waited too long, oh my mother, oh mother.
So I'm going to pause it right there for a second. For those who don't know, the mother in this scene is actually my sister. And she was, remember when we recorded that at my house, that whole scene, I was living in Bolton, Ontario, and we had taken the day to record this video. And this scene here is actually my sister being the mother. And the kid that you saw running in the background was the guitarist's stepson. And I believe that kid now today would be, what, 20 years old or something like that, or maybe older?
Well, But let's do the math. So this was done in very early 2000, right?
That would have
So
been
at least 20
yeah.
years old, at
Yeah.
least, because 20 years have passed, right?
Yep. So and the funny thing about this whole video is we didn't have permits, we didn't have anything like that. We just said, where's a cool location we could go film this thing? And we said, let's go to the cemetery, the cemetery in town, Bolton Town there, and there's a big cemetery. We took our vehicles full of gear with our amps and everything, set up there right in the cemetery in the middle of winter. I think there was snow and everything going on.
It was freaking cold. Yeah.
We had a couple of friends doing the camera work. We had some sort of PA or something blasting the song because we were actually lip syncing, obviously, but we had the music blasting in the cemetery. And this is pretty much right in the middle of town in Bolton. Like the cars were on Highway 50 were right there, and people going by would have seen there's something going on at the cemetery. So the fact that we got away with that is the most impressive part of that whole video, because doing that today, you'd be stopped automatically before you even step foot there and set up equipment and did. So that was kind of a different time. I don't know how we got away with it.
I didn't even think about that angle, but nobody bothered us at all, and we couldn't have been there for less than hours, like at least 3, 4, 5 hours. Maybe it was just such a bitterly cold, crappy day that people are like, you know what? I normally tell them to get lost. It's too ugly out there. I'm not going to do it. Right?
It could be.
If they can handle it. And I was playing drums in a T-shirt. I'm pretty sure.
Let's just. I'll just go up a little bit on the video see if we got a shot here, because let's see. I just want to see if there's a shot of the band playing. Well, you can see the band playing. Like, I mean, it's all outside. Like, here's Denny, in just a T-shirt. See, it was snowing.
It was, yeah.
In the middle of a snowstorm, and there we are trying to record a video in a cemetery that we have no rights, no permits, no nothing. But there it is. That's how we did it.
Yeah, it seems like such a simpler time, doesn't it?
Can
you imagine? Can you imagine if you tried that today? Like, you're right. Like there'd be a SWAT team like coming down on you. You know what I mean?
I know.
Which would be great to get on film. You might want to do that if you ever have a band and you want to show that, getting arrested. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So let's move to the next video. So the next video, we got a little bit more professional with it. We had backing from that company that signed us out of New York, and they had us go down to Boston, right?
Yeah, Ass9 Records.
Yeah, I think it was in the Boston area that we did 2 more videos there for our second single. Well, this was a different album. It was off the second album. We did the single was Down, and they had brought us down to Boston. And if the funny part about that video was Massachusetts, very close
to Godsmack's, like Sully, where Sully grew up.
Yeah. And one of the funny things about doing that video in Boston was on the way to Boston, we stopped, we actually got our gear, most of our gear for that video at the House of Guitars in Rochester. Do you remember that store?
That's right. Yeah. They had T-shirts everywhere on the, like, do you remember T-shirts everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it was like 3 houses in one. And in one of the rooms, there was a pile of T-shirts that looked like a pile of like gravel at a construction site. I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah. But anyway, I'll let you continue the story. But yeah, those guys, Ass9 Records, they were fabulous to us, and they really believed in us, and I enjoyed that time.
And so the reason we needed the gear is we didn't want to bring all our gear across the border, and there was a bunch of stuff. So we just brought our guitars. I brought my basses. Neil did you bring your drum? I believe you brought your drums, but we didn't have like our big speakers and amps and stuff. So Rochester, the House of Guitars, I guess the guy from Ass9 Records had a connection with them, and they actually lent us the gear right from their store and said, yeah, go ahead. So I had this big Ampeg 8x10 rack thing and the head, and Denny had these Mesa Boogies, big cabinets, like, and they just lent it to us and said, yeah, go off, come back in a few days when you're done the shoot. It's incredible.
That was very cool.
So let's have a quick look at that video. That was done in a warehouse, right? Remember, so this song is about a drug
empty warehouse, and quite honestly, that's a very cool kind of thing that bands do now. I think we were on the cutting edge of it. It also may be a budget thing where we're like, well, we can't afford anything fancier than this, so let's get an huge empty room. But I loved it. And do you remember how loud it was in there? It was like cannons going off.
Yeah, it was an empty warehouse, and they just let us go in there and shoot this video. So let me show you a little bit about that, and let's have a quick look here.
I know that I can never let anyone come between you and me. I know that nothing else matters as long as I have you with me. I will never let you go. I can't escape this grip you have on me, and I know you'll never let me down. And as the floor rushes up to me, that's when I know you haven't let me down. I can't face who I am in this life without you and me, and I don't like this person I see in the mirror without you and me. I will never let you go. I can't escape this grip you have on me, and I know you'll never let me down. And as the floor rushes up to me, that's when I know you haven't let me down. Just keep bringing me down to my knees. I have been guilty of one little sin, kicking myself in the teeth too many times. Won't you please lead me out of this hole I've dug? I must get away. Help me find my soul.
Oh, there you go. Look, a little part of that video story. And that again, typical of the type of songs that we were writing back then. And Neil's or Ryan's lyrics were very serious subjects. This was about drug addiction, and you remember that girl that did that part? She was an actual actress in the Boston area, and then they hired her to do that.
Well, we did not meet her, but I do remember that they had found her to do that part. They had a kind of vision of how that would look, and all things considered, I really have a lot of respect, and those guys really believed in us, and that was reassuring to us. We didn't know much about the business of music, which is, you look back and you say, if we could do this again, maybe you hire a representative, a lawyer, or somebody. As I'm saying that, I think did you and I go into a fancy, like the CIBC tower, and met with some music guys who were running the Tragically Hip and stuff like that. Like,
man,
we met with some pretty heavy players.
I remember that day because we went up. It was one of the Toronto Towers. We went there and we actually sat in this big boardroom with this big fancy table. Remember that? And we were like sitting there like, oh my God.
It's in my mind right now.
Yeah. And that was a strange feeling because we've never been through that.
Well, and normally what I realize now, what happens is the band is usually represented, but we didn't know any better. We didn't know to hire, nor do we want to spend, $2,000 an hour on a lawyer or whatever. But we just like, okay, well, let's hear what these guys have to say. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was pretty impressive that we were entertaining these kinds of meetings on the 45th floor of the CIBC Tower, overlooking the city of Toronto, talking about our band with these serious people. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's worse things that could happen to you.
Absolutely. It was definitely an experience that I'm happy to have had and to have gone through for sure. But the music business is a business. At some point, there's a lot of business pieces that have to come together in order to even get you that chance to that next level, or this is what we're going to do for a living type of mindset, right? And for us, we had pieces of everything. We knew that we loved doing this. We knew what we liked the most about it was performing live, writing songs, recording, like that part of it. But the business side of it, you have to have a different mindset sometimes. And I know why bands do it this way now, where they've got a legal representation, like a manager or a legal lawyer or somebody taking care of that side of it, so that you as a band can focus on what you're really in this for. With us, myself and you kind of took on a lot of those duties as far as managing and working with agents and bookings and all these deals and stuff. We kind of took a lot of that on, right? So it's definitely a whole different mindset you have to have when you're looking at the business side of this whole situation. And it can get trying. It can get very, you got to know what you're doing, or you can put yourself in some pretty dicey situations as far as your rights, your masters, all that stuff can disappear pretty quickly. And all that work that you put in can go to somebody else. And so definitely experiences that we learned as we went through. But, I'd say for the overall part of Smear, that whole 10-year period, I got to say that 95 to 99% of the time, it was exactly where I wanted to be, as far as I was doing what I loved doing. I was pursuing that childhood dream when I sat in my bedroom with the tennis racket, playing in front of a mirror, thinking of that big grander thing and going, someday I want to be on a stage and I want to be writing music and I want to be playing all these things that I'm listening to on records and stuff. So, I'm happy that we had that time, and it was a great experience for me. What was your take on the whole 10-year run we had?
It definitely is an almost famous story, as far as the quote, the almost famous thing. We couldn't have scripted it, and when I went to Cherry Beach and jammed with you guys and doing cover tunes, and even the first few years just playing, Ontario area clubs and stuff, I had no way of foreseeing that it would take on the life that it did. I don't know about you, but I was just happy, banging on the drums, and I'm kind of still in that place. Like, let's forget about COVID for a second. If it wasn't for COVID, I'd still be playing, 3-4 times a week. You know what I mean? So, how did I get to that point when, before you guys had got in touch with me, I'd left my drums in their cases in some guy's jam room I hadn't been to in 2 years. I should have paid him storage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How does it go from, and that was 20 plus 25 years ago, where I was like, yeah, maybe I'm done, because I had done the whole touring thing across Canada. And like I said, I was really happy and proud of all the things I did in the late 80s and 90s. And nobody can take that away from me. And I've seen every inch of this country, from Newfoundland to Vancouver Island. So all of that will never leave me. So that's always going to be part of my repertoire. But in my 30s, after I thought that that ship had sailed, no pun intended, and then all of a sudden, I joined this cover band. How could I have foreseen that this band would be on the cutting edge? And do you remember what is that site that put our CD that promotes music? You know the site I mean. And that was where we really got a lot of interest. It will come to me.
Was it, you mean in Europe, or was it a Canadian thing?
No, a site in North America that featured a band, and CD Baby.
Yes, yeah. And they had us as a feature band, yes.
So
yeah.
CD Baby featured Smear, and I don't know if you remember, but when that guy, whoever the guy was that was running CD Baby, and they're still around, and they still do good business. But when he said, you got to check out this band, I don't know if you remember, we were getting inquiries from like major labels. And I don't remember what became of any of those inquiries, but that guy helped put us on the map even after we got to the point where we recorded the CD and we were marketing the CD on independently and so on. That was a point where maybe a major label was going to get involved, even after our experience with what were the guys that came to see it? Do you remember
Coalition Management? Coalition. We played in that little in Dom's studio, or in the lobby of that studio, and they were outside. Look, because it was so loud in there. We were playing live with our amps and everything. It was so loud that they stood outside the studio, looking at the window, through the window, listening and watching us because it was so loud.
One of my favorite stories. If you remember, it was winter. Okay?
Yes.
So it was winter in Ontario, and these people are saying, we're going to be out here. Not because they didn't like the music. It was the intensity in the room was way more than they could handle. So they watched us through it was like going to the corner store and saying, well, yeah, we want that chocolate bar, but we'll just watch that chocolate bar perform until we decided we're going to buy it or not. You know what I mean? It was like, I remember them standing. It was cold, right? It was like they were like shivering out there and watching it.
We were just giving it our all, thinking, if these guys sign us or whatever, we're off and running, because they were, the management for Our Lady Peace, Simple Plan, all these guys, right?
Arnold Lanny was involved heavily. The whole Frozen Ghost, and then that song, the baby song by Sheriff.
That was an interesting one. I'm glad you brought that one up. I remember in those days I had hair. Now I don't have any hair. Those are gone.
I was already bald. You guys.
Yeah, you rocked that look bald for years.
Okay, so I must have just done it because I've been, this is me for I think over half my life now. So yeah. But
something I'd like to touch on is that you brought up just a few minutes ago was Neil as a drummer. Yes, he was the drummer for Smeer and played with Smeer for 10 years. But after we broke up, Smeer was not a thing anymore. Neil never stopped, and Neil has played with so many people in Ontario, with multiple tribute acts like the AC/DC tribute, the Alice Cooper tribute. These are major tribute acts that Neil has been playing with for years now. And you never slowed down, like you said, before this COVID thing was going. You were playing pretty much all the time, every weekend. And that's one thing where I think our paths really separated at that point. When Smear ended, I definitely, it hit me real hard, and I almost had I have to disconnect everything from music and focus on something completely different, because my mind was not there anymore. And that's when I went into photography and videography and focused on the career that I have today, and put all that aside. Luckily, I've gotten back into music in 2018 and picked up the guitar and started being, a guitar songwriter, and really getting the passion back in music. But for that period of time, from 2007 or 2008 until 2018, I was completely disconnected from everything music. I wouldn't even walk into a music store to look at a guitar or a bass or anything. Where you, as soon as Smear ended, I think you were probably a couple of weeks later, you might have been, gigging and doing stuff with other artists. So you never stopped. So that's really cool.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, and I thought, in anticipation of you asking me about bands I'm involved with, you're absolutely right. Like I again, you have to remember, like I was basically, before Smear came along, I'm like, I have no interest in just playing my drums by myself. I had no interest in being a better musician. I was just like, yeah, my drums have been in my buddy's place for 2 years. I haven't even contacted them to see if they're okay, or if they, there was a flood, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was really like, is this really important to me anymore? And you ask yourself these questions, and again, it was all about my buddy pulling me back into that jam thing. And then that was when I said, you know what? Yeah, I am back into this, and I want to play in a band. And then all the guys that were playing in the jam with me were all in like 3, and I'm like, how are you in 4 bands? Okay. So just to bring that to full circle, I jotted down the bands that I am playing with, and let's put COVID out of the picture. Prior to COVID, I'm going to read you a list of bands that I have or am involved with. Okay, you ready for this?
Okay. Yep.
So Smear, Thunderstruck, AC/DC tribute. Hellenbach, AC/DC tribute. Julie McLean, she's a cover performer that does a lot of female-oriented pop and rock. Tommy Rocker, this great musician that does a jam nights. Al Riley's Catalyst is at the Rock Pile. He's the go-to Rock Pile Monday Night Jam guy. Into the Void is another Black Sabbath band. Blizzard of Oz I did for years with my buddy Scott Cleary, who's now in PEI, and Jen and Roland. 6 Feet Deep is an original band that did some, and those were the guys that stepped in for the Danny McMaster thing, right? Eyes of Alice is an Alice Cooper band that I'm working with. Motor Headache was a band I worked with. Snake Eye 7 was an original band out in Saskatoon that flew me out there to do some recording with them with Chavis Records. I don't even remember that name. Still a Night, a Whitesnake band. How did I get, where did I go from just like, yeah, I'm not doing this to like, I want to be in
every band.
So, and then the whole COVID thing is it's an all or nothing thing, right? So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because going from that extreme of performing and playing pretty much every weekend to COVID, everything shuts down, and then your whole existent world-wise, everything you did on weekends and stuff as far as a performing musician basically stops. How did you handle that within the first, I guess the first month? You're not really sure. You're okay, and I'll be back in a couple of months. The summer will come and then this will blow away. But now we're a year into this, and we're still dealing with that. And all musicians all over the world are dealing with it, touring acts and stuff that have basically stopped everything. And it's you're in a different mindset now. Coming back, do you think that once this thing, maybe in 2022, next year, when things start to get back to normal and you can get back out there and perform, do you think you'll be back performing again, doing all the things that you were doing before COVID?
Well, one of the things I started doing, and I'll be honest, I'm not doing as much right now because there's just so much uncertainty, but I started doing backup vocals a few years ago. I realized that just add some gang vocal. I wasn't trying to pick harmonies and things like that, right? But as I've gotten more comfortable with it, I am doing that, and to the point where the Monday Night Jams, and Al Riley's Catalyst, Al was like, Neil, you need to have a mic, like help me out, kind of thing. And so it just kind of developed. And I think my next step is I'd like to do some lead singing. Now, lead singing from the drum kit is always a weird kind of thing because there's not a front man to entertain you. So I'm not sure how entertaining it is for people, but for a jam night, So I started, when COVID first started, I started working really hard on singing songs I thought, Stone songs and TNT by AC/DC. Like I wanted to pick the regular jam songs because you want to pick the songs that everybody knows how to play. Rolling Stones, just all those. And then so I started working on it, and I set up a situation where I had a mic and I could hear it in my headphones and stuff. And I'm not going to say I was good, but I was going to say I was willing to give it a try. And it's a jam night. Like, I've heard some questionable, performances. So again, you get to write it off because it's a jam night. You get to try things because it's a jam night.
Right.
Nobody's paying you a lot of money to be, thunderstruck or whatever it is. So anyway, I was really, so I started working on that, just singing standards. And I am not doing as much of now because I don't know when tomorrow is, right?
Yeah.
But when I do know when tomorrow is, I've got and the thing about me, I don't remember lyrics for crap. So that's the big thing for me is I need the words. I need some sort of, I need
an iPad or something.
or something.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping if I practice them enough. But I'm actually thinking I'm an okay-ish singer. So there's where I'm at. That would be the thing that I would start working on. Now, I got to be honest with you. When I see bands that have a bass player, a guitar player, and a drummer, and then there's no front man, and then the drum and the vocals coming from the back, I find it, I want to look at a front man. So I do have this kind of...
You might go the drums and go try singing?
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I don't think I want to be a front man, but I find it takes away when there isn't a front man. You see what I'm saying? So maybe you've answered my question. Maybe I just have to get the balls to get out in front and not have the protection of the kit
drums,
around me. But I also like the fact that the one thing that hasn't been a problem is the syncopation of playing drums and the phrasing of the lyrics has not been a problem. I thought that might be that kind of watching like Elaine from Seinfeld dance or something. I mean,
that's what I look like if I try it. I can't do it. I can't. Yeah. I tried playing bass and singing at the same time. I could maybe do a few little background things, but that's it.
So isn't that funny? So our brains are wired a little differently because I can totally disassociate from the drumming versus the phrasing of a song. So I don't know what to tell you except for if we get jamming live again, hopefully sooner rather than later, that will probably be my next challenge.
Well, that's great. That's totally out of left field. I'd never expected that answer from you. I never thought that would be something you'd be very interested in as far as singing wise. So that's great. I'm looking forward to hearing it. Trust me. I tried singing. I tried it, and I'm that type of guy that step out of your comfort zone once in a while to really grow as a musician or whatever it is that you're into for work or whatever. And one of the things was, singing for me. I've never done that. So on my channel, you'll notice there's a playlist on my channel that's cover songs. So I've put together songs that I like, and I play all the instruments. I program the drums. I can't play drums worth crap, so I don't attempt that. But I play the bass and I do all the guitar parts. And for the most part, I just download the vocal track and put it over top. But the one I said, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm going to try singing in one of them, and I'm going to sing a country song. So you'll notice on my channel, there's a cover song by Vince Gill that I attempted, and it came out okay. But you'll notice Vince Gill.
Oh, okay.
Country, not Motley Crue. But so I did it, and I put it out there, and people said it was okay, and then they enjoyed it. But I was definitely stepping out of my comfort zone, and it's probably not something that I'm going to jump into quickly again. But I figured, hey, let's put it out there. And I put it on a lot of people watched it, and they were like, I can't believe you're singing, and you're singing a country song. That's not, you're not a country guy, and you're a metal guy and all that. So I know where you're coming from. I tried it, but I don't think that's my the singing thing. So I wish you the best of luck, and I can't wait to hear some stuff that you might do.
Well, yeah, again, forget about COVID, but that will be the thing that will be the next thing for me, which is fun because, like I'm mid-50s, to be thinking about doing new things is kind of fun. And like I say, if we hadn't been on hold, I'm sure I would have been singing a few songs at the jam by now. And the good thing about the jam is you're allowed to be okay. Like the jam, there's no expectations. If I'm certainly not going to ask my AC/DC tribute if I can sing TNT because that's a song I think I can do best. That makes no sense at all. Right. But at the jam, me singing TNT would be fine. You know what I mean? So that's the difference. But that would be my next. That's my next thing.
So the weird thing about the whole COVID situation, as you know, here in Grand Falls, where I currently live, every summer they call it the Potato Festival, and they always have this huge thing. And on Friday, Saturday nights, they have bands that come in, and we were one of those bands that came in and played the Potato Festival a few times. So they hire from all over Canada, and so this year. The band they're a Grand Falls band, and they were going to be the headliner on Friday night. And they had reached out to me in the winter months prior to all this crap, and they'd asked me if they could play Smeer, a couple of Smeer songs, because Smeer is still very much known here in this part of the world. And I said, yeah, go ahead. But then they asked me, we want you to come and play with us those couple of songs on stage, either as the bass player or as a guitarist, because I'm playing more guitar. So I said, wow, okay. So this past summer, July 1st, I would have been my first gig at playing since the Smeer days. That would have been the first time back on a stage as a guitar player playing. I think I was going to play 4 songs with this band, and then the whole COVID thing happened and everything got canceled. So I don't know, that might have been a trigger for me getting back on stage. Who knows? That could have been like, oh my God, I really miss this, and I need to get back to playing live and with musicians again, and not just myself in my studio here writing songs with, doing all the parts and stuff. So it would have been an interesting experience, and I'm sorry that it didn't happen, because I was kind of looking forward to it, and being at that festival, knowing that, I had a lot of friends and people that I knew that were going to be there, and even given the opportunity from this band from Grand Falls to be willing to let me do that was quite special. So who knows, maybe this year. I don't think so. I don't think we'll be out of this mess before the end of this year, but who knows? I'll keep my fingers crossed, and maybe someday I'll get back up on that stage and get the bug again. But right now I'm happy doing what I'm doing as far as work-wise, and as far as music goes, writing my stuff. And I've got my studio here. It's beautiful. I like working in the studio environment a lot more now, and I've done a lot myself. So, but yeah, COVID is throwing a wrench in a lot of things. It's crazy.
Yeah, I just hope somebody, releases the pause button at some point and things can resume. So that's all we can hope,
And you know what? I think people are so pent up about seeing live music again that when this thing opens up, I think concerts and festivals and that will be at their highest level that they've ever been as far as interest and
that's a good point, because I think some people, prior to COVID, it's like, I can watch any band I want on YouTube. I don't have to leave the house. I can buy a 6-pack and sit at home and I can watch anything from Michael Jackson to Metallica. So it doesn't matter. So, but we want to get out. The need for human interaction now is so great that you're right. It doesn't. It could be going for wings at your local restaurant. It'd be going for breakfast. It doesn't have to, but music will definitely be one of those things that people are like, you won't take it for granted anymore. And even me on my days off, people are like, oh, do you want to go to a bar and see a band? I'm like, yeah, I spend 4 days a week in a bar. Do I want to go to a bar? I gotta like the band. I'm not just going to go because you want me to go, and I'm going to spend $30 on beers and you know what I mean, pay a cover charge and so on and so forth. Like, I better want to go see that band. So, Absolutely. But now I'm like, Christ, I'll go see Britney Spears at this point. I don't fucking care. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it'll be quite interesting when everything starts to open up again. I'd like to touch a little bit before we're going to go on a little bit more here, maybe another half hour if you're okay with that, Neil. Are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to give kudos to the fans. Smear was driven primarily by the fan base that it had. It was a hardcore fan base, and they really got into music and supported the band like crazy. And I have a little clip here that shows that type of intensity at every show that we played, and the fans that showed up and how they were. And I think if there's probably some people in the chat watching us now that will see themselves in this audience. And we got to keep in mind, this is almost 20 years ago. So they're just little kids right now, now they're adults. So let's give them a kind of a tribute and a little bit of a look. All right. So let me just see if I can load that up. All right. Let me back up and let me switch the screen. All right. So to a browser. So I don't know if this guy's in the chat. Yeah, I think he was in the chat earlier, but I'm sure him and his brother will show up in this clip, and a few other people that might recognize themselves. This is right before our shows. We kind of sometimes do a meet and greet, or we would kind of just hang out with fans in the lobbies and stuff. But this was our camera guy that went out, or maybe even Leslie, your partner in crime, might have been up there with a camera and stuff and taking some of this video. And we had friends that really pitched in at all our shows that we did, either doing camera work or security or selling T-shirts or whatever it was. We had great support from our family and friends, and that was great. But let's have a little listen here to some of the craziness that happened before our shows.
Ready for Smeer? Smear's coming up. Yeah! You guys been here all night. Like a maniac in the front. Fucking rule! There's a girl named Mel. She's ready. She wants to hear Smeer. Yeah! Smeer fucking rocks! Guy was playing with us last night at the Broadway. Good man. Yeah! Ready for Smeer, guys? Everyone's ready? You guys are ready for Smeer tonight or what? Yeah! All right. Ready for Smeer back there? Yeah! Yeah, baby. Tell me about
wrap this fucker up with a trademark ending song. You guys know what that is?
Oh, jeez. I wonder if some people in the chat recognize themselves.
I bet some of those kids have kids.
I think they do. That's hilarious. And I'll show part of that show a little bit later as well, where we actually invited a lot of the fans to jump on stage with us. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. So that becomes a little bit crazy when you think of the times that we were living in, not just today, but before COVID and stuff, where security is a lot stricter, or people have gotten hurt on stage or whatever. If we were doing what we were doing back then, saying, hey, just jump up on stage, and we had all these strangers just jumping up and, right next to you on the drums and me and the bass, and just jumping on the stages and stuff and just going nuts and jumping back in the crowd, like people getting hurt and stuff. We didn't even think twice back then. It was just like, hey, you're all part of the show. Let's just put the energy up on stage and let's just rock, right?
Definitely a simpler time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was just before that stuff went down with Damage Plan and the
shooting,
the Pantera brothers. Who am I thinking of? Dimebag, Daryl,
yeah.
I mean, I'm so happy that is the very rare exception to people congregating for concerts. So I'm not letting one bad apple, spoil that fun. But you're absolutely right. Like, will those? How long until that's okay again? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's different. It's a different time for sure. So I think right now what we'll do is, if you have any questions in the chat for either myself or Neil, regarding Smeer or music in general, definitely post them in there. I'll keep an eye on it for the next few minutes or whatever. And if I see something come up that is addressed to either me or Neil, we'll try to answer those questions for you. I'm just going to go back a little bit on the chat because I just want to see if there's anything that I missed real quick. We've got a great bunch in here tonight, so thank you all for joining. I see some familiar names, Louis Lagacé, which we just saw in that clip. I believe he's in here as well. So here's his comment there. Loud and Clear is one of the best sounding records of all time. Yeah, it turned out really well, that album.
We were lucky to get that production, and Brian, I don't know if you remember, but we had planned for maybe 3 days in there or something, like a long weekend in there.
Yeah.
And because of Dom believing in us, Dom said, you know what, I want to take the time to make these songs right. And I guess that's the ability you have when you own your own studio, if you see potential in a band. And he made those songs so much better production-wise than they could have. I mean, we still have written those songs. There's no doubt about it. But, like using the EBO on some of those things that, just the little things, that the production quality that makes, like, the EBO was used on Ryan's song that he wrote about his daughter, right?
Yes.
Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah,
And
My World, yeah.
Riley. And so, like those little things that make the difference between what a great song could be and what it evolves to be. And so we were really lucky to get that time and consideration from Dominic Kondo and the studio. And regardless of whether we sold 1,000 or 1 million, it doesn't change the fact that those songs will always be fantastically produced songs and well written. I get to say that because I think that the writing was good enough that he saw it, and he the production is obviously a huge part of it as well. And we got that from him, and it didn't cost us a cent. We were really lucky.
Yeah, and that's the weird part, because we had gone in there, like you said, for just a couple of days session. We had saved some money, and we recorded that quick demo, and we want to go into that bigger studio and record. I think we only planned on recording maybe 5 or 6 songs. I'm not even sure we had planned a full album.
5 songs, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and we had set up live to do the pre-production part, just to kind of go through the songs, and he heard it. He just heard the pre-production of us playing live, and he caught wind of it, and he said, okay, there's something here. And that's when he sat us down and said, guys, I know you're in here for just a few days and you want to do this quick little EP, but I think you can do more, and I'm going to offer my services as, I don't even remember what the deal was called, like a producer deal, or there's a name for it anyway, but he offered us that deal, and I'm glad we took it, and it gave us an opportunity to sit in that studio for a lot longer than we had planned as far as studio time, and we learned a lot, and we were able to produce that album.
And do you know, he pitched it to Arnold Lanny as well, because he was pretty tight with Arnold from Frozen Ghost, and again, that whole Sheriff song and all that kind of history. So I don't remember if Arnold was all in on it, or if Arnold saw the potential for a production deal or whatever, but he definitely shared our stuff with guys like that. And so, to be in the discussion of people that are at that level of music industry, we couldn't have been doing too many things wrong.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just going to look back here at the chat, make sure I didn't miss anything. Again, if you do have any questions for us, just go ahead and post it in there. As far as gear, I know we have a lot of gearheads here in our chat, a lot of guitar players and stuff. But as far as drums, we were a little different in that way, Neil and I, where Neil, you're not as intense as far as a gearhead as I would be. You're like, these are great drums, I'm just going to play the hell out of them. and you were happy with that, where I would kind of look at, okay, what's the best option for this, and what string gauge can I get for this, and what's the best sound, and tweak and change this rack effect or change that amp, or let's look at different speakers. And I was pretty much diehard into that kind of, I guess, minutia, where you were, I remember you showed up with the drums you had, and you had those for quite a while. It was the black kit. Was it a Ludwig kit maybe, or an old Ludwig?
Tama kit.
And then we were like, "Oh man, you gotta get that DW set or whatever." Remember, we were teasing you about that, and then finally, Marco, our one of our friends, had that DW set that he was selling because he was moving to Australia, and we were on you right away. Said, "You gotta get that, you gotta get that." But in your mind, you're like, "Yeah, that's cool and everything," but it didn't matter to you, right? You, as long as you had something that sounded good that you were comfortable playing, that's all that mattered. But you did end up getting the DW kit.
What I've gotten a lot better at, and you don't know how these things come about, but I now figure I can make crappy drums sound good because I know how to tune a drum, and I never knew how to do it. And it's all by sound and feel. And just for any drummers out there, I'll give a really brief tip on tuning toms. And I didn't realize this myself, but if the top head tom is really relaxed, really soft, and not too tight, and then you tighten up the bottom, again, not over tight, but if you do it, what you can do is you get a sound that goes up, the doom. You don't want a drum to go boo, you know what I mean? And I didn't realize that for a long time, so I would crank the hell out of my top. Anyway, bottom line is, little thing for drummers, keep your tom heads as relaxed as possible on the top, not wrinkly, but very relaxed, and then tune the bottom head just a little bit more taut, and you'll get this nice kind of sound. And now I'm not an expert because I know a lot about it. I'm an expert because I've done it long enough that I know the sound that my ears personally like. And when anybody hears my drums, and especially sound men, and this is one. I remember the guy at the mansion in Barrie, and he liked the sound of my drums. And that was even before I was much better at tuning. He said, "Shit in, shit out." And what he said is, if the drums don't sound good by themselves, they're not going to sound good through my PA. So if you give me quality, then I can make that quality. So it's something that has happened much later in my career to know how to tune my drums. But now I feel like I've got that down, and I could help other people with that. So if drummers ever have questions about tuning, I can help you.
That's awesome. Yeah, because Louis in here, and he said he was just about to ask about the kit. So obviously we've got a few drummers in the audience.
Cool.
That's great. And I think this is his brother here. There's a Sting Sabers is Pierre. You remember Pierre?
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also have my better half is in here. Elaine, yeah. She was at many shows and experienced some of that stuff. That's one thing that she says here. Yeah, spit water. That was your trademark. I think at every show, I would get soaked in the back of my shirt and everything because you were always back there just spitting water and just doing all kinds of craziness. So I can relate to that for sure. But yeah, great stuff.
COVID's going to shut me down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true, right? You're not going to be doing.
Yeah, I'd be arrested.
You'd be wearing a mask. Oh man, here's a Metalhead Hippies, a friend of mine that has a great show as well, and it's kind of, his show is like a radio show almost, where he goes on for about 4 to 5 hours at a time, and he just plays a lot of videos from our community here. That if I produce a song or whatever and I put it out, he'll play it, and he kind of goes through the rotation. So great show that he has. Let's see. Here we got a question from Michael G. I don't know if you know Michael.
Yeah, Giro. Yeah.
We kind of expected questions like this. Very interesting music in history. Do you think it would be possible together again once the pandemic is over? Do you know Michael?
I do know Michael. Yeah, he's a guitar player. He comes to the Rock Pile jams. He also teaches music, so he's very involved in the music scene. He even was talking to me before our thing here. And one thing I have behind me, my electronic drums, and I've been seeing these people that have been doing these virtual concerts where they're Lady Jen Evil or Jen McCubbin did a thing, a Triumph song that's been getting a lot of traction.
I saw that. Yeah.
And Triumph actually has just somebody in Triumph, I think Gilmore, have kind of acknowledged that they saw it and that they enjoyed it. So they've really got a lot of traction with that. And I've never, and Michael was telling me that he could get me set up. And I've also got another friend, John Robbie. These guys are more technically savvy than I am. So they're saying that there's a way that they could get me on my electronic drums to hook up with other bands or do tracks or do some of these virtual live events. So I'm open to any and all of that. And I just know nothing about it. And I don't know how I don't know what equipment to buy. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful that when we get past this COVID thing and I can safely have people in my home, I can invite, a friend to come in, spend the day with me, give them all the pizza and beers they want and help me get this thing set up. So that would be great.
Yeah, there is a learning curve, but I think once you're set up and running, you're going to really enjoy that, to be able to collaborate with folks like you said, your friends that did that Triumph thing, because I did see that. I think Roland was part of that as well.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. So
and
things
Jen,
like that
Lady
is really
Jen
cool.
Evil.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and then
I've done a few. I've done a few collaborations with some of the community members where they will just post a jam track and they'll jam to it, and then we'll put our parts to it, and then we'll kind of make a little video and we share it throughout the community and stuff. So it's great. It's a great way to kind of do stuff with other musicians and not just yourself type of thing. So if you can collaborate with folks, but yeah, you should be able to get set up fairly quickly. That's for sure.
Well,
as
I'm
far as
putting it out
Michael,
there now because.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just let me interrupt for a second. I'm putting it out there now, like the people like Michael, and I know that the drummer in there is also a gentleman I know very well, and he's obviously figured out how to do this thing online. So yeah, I guess I'm reaching out to any of my pals out there that if anybody can help me get set up either remotely or once we're back to normal, then I'm all in on that, because I feel like I'm missing out on some fun and getting some creativity out there during this time where you can't play in the clubs,
Right. And touching back on the question that we saw in here as well was, do we ever think the band will get back together, as far as Smear goes? And that's a question I get a lot. Trust me, I get that a lot virtually and in person when I see folks that have seen us play many times. It's one of the wish list things that has always come up. Can you guys please get back together or do a show or do a reunion thing or whatever? It's something that is not like out of the realm of possibility. It's a little difficult for us to put that together because we're not really in touch with every member of the band anymore, as we, like Neil and myself are easily, like, we'll chat together on Facebook, and we don't talk every day, but we're easy to get in touch with and to kind of go over anything that we would have to do if we were to do that. We do speak to the singer once in a while, Ryan, but he's been on and offline, so it's kind of a little harder to coordinate things. And the guitarist kind of, again, when the band quit, he completely disconnected from music as well, and he went his own type of way and started the family thing and that. So we haven't really had a lot of conversations with the guitarist to even entertain an idea of a reunion show and stuff. So it's really hard for me to say at this point that, yes, that's something that I would like to do in the future, or that I see happening in the future. I don't rule it out. If something happened and everybody was on board and we wanted to give it a go, I would be open to it. I'm sure Neil would be fine with doing it. Again, we'd have to really speak to the rest of the other half of the Smear equation to see where their head would be at if they'd be willing to do that. I did speak with Ryan probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Once I got back into music and I was doing some recording, I recorded some original stuff, and I knew that he was not doing anything, and I figured he was like maybe itching to do something creative wise. And I sent him some tracks and said, if you're willing, put some lyrics to this and to give it a go, you're more than welcome to do that, and then come over and I'll record, because I had the studio equipment to do the recording. We could record his vocals. He had to listen to it, but I think his confidence at that point was pretty low, and he was at that point where he didn't want to even try, because I don't know if he had much confidence in himself because he'd been out of it for so long. So I left it at that. I just said, maybe, whenever you're ready, just let me know and we might be able to do something, but no pressure, just throwing it out there for him. So to answer that question right now is we don't know. We can't say never say never, that whole saying. But right now it's not in the future kind of outlook that I see anyway.
I think that the safe thing for me to say is that if Ryan isn't on board in the future, then it makes no sense, because his sound, and that's not to take anything away from any of the members of the band, but it's possible you could fill one or two of the holes here or there with other competent musicians, but Ryan was the sound, the vocal sound of Smear, and so if he wasn't a part of it, I don't see any reincarnation of it. No matter what, let's suppose I could see another drummer being able to do something with it, but I don't know. Yeah, I think Ryan's the X factor in this whole thing. Yeah,
and I agree, and even as the whole band together, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable, like even not having Denny there or something. Like Smear was the whole of the band. The four people together made that chemistry, and removing a piece of that, yes, you could pull it off. It's just not the same. And I don't think it's what the fans of this band would want. If we were doing a reunion show, it's not what they would expect of us. And I think it wouldn't be fair to them even to put something out there to say, oh, here's Smear with 2 members, or something like that. It's not, I wouldn't want to do that.
I hear you. Now, look at a band like Metallica. They've gone through some member changes. Mind you, James Hetfield has always been there, right?
And Lars,
So again, it's possible that bands can move on through cycling different members, but I'm with you. To me, it doesn't make sense. I don't know what Denny's doing musically, if anything, these days. But ideally, I'd love to make it a true reunion. It would be nice to go out back out east, assuming that all this stuff is, we don't talk about the word COVID anymore.
Yeah.
And so that to me would be ideal. But one day at a time, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, Louis says here, Kiss did it. So
that's true.
Go. If Kiss can do it, maybe we can manage something down the road. Who knows?
Right. We'll have to put on makeup.
Yeah, if we had makeup, we could do pretty much anything because nobody would know what the hell's up there.
Kiss were way ahead of their time. They said we dress up these faces. You don't know the faces, you know the paint, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, so we're almost at our end of the show here, and is there anything that you'd like to say? I think that we've got a lot more content that we could talk about, and we could go on for hours if we wanted to, but I think we should save it for a future show. I'd like to have you back on my show sometime, and we can, go through another round of memories and answering questions and talking about the band a little bit more if you're open to that. But is there anything that you'd like to say or where your plans are moving forward as far as the next couple of months here?
I think if I see the progress back to, the live music world, all right, I think I would like to work on the singing part more. Again, I find it boring to watch a band that has a drummer singing, so I'm conflicted by that. But at the same time, in the jam environment, if I were to be doing my weekly jams as I've done in the past, that would be a great. What I like about the jam is there's no expectation of performance. You can be mediocre, you can be good, you can be amazing, you can be, working on your craft, there's no expectations, you know? So in a jam environment, I'd really like to try the singing thing. And if I had the guts, I would even consider coming out front of the drums, but that would take a while. I think first step would be to sing at the kit, because that's my comfort zone. And like I said, the whole syncopation of it isn't a problem, so that's not an issue. But yeah, to eventually be singing a song as a front man would you know, that would take some courage on my level, for sure.
Yes. Well, I think you could do it. I think you could.
Thank you.
We got a comment here from Rick Nisbet. Do you know Rick?
I know Rick since high school days. Rick and I know each other from Peterborough. Rick is a fantastic friend of Sebastian Burke, or Sebastian Bach. Yeah. And they knew each other in high school. We were all going to high school together in Peterborough. And Rick's mentioned in Sebastian's book many times. I read that book cover to cover. Rick's a great friend. He's a good singer, and he's totally supportive of the music scene. He's all in.
Awesome. We got a comment here from Louis saying, if Phil Collins could do it, you can do it too, Neil. There you go.
I think I better look at.
There's Pierre said it was an honor to play with us, because they if you remember, they opened one of our shows in 2004, one of the big shows. So it was great to play with them. And there was another band, Eye Inside, I believe.
Dirt?
Well, yeah, their name was Dirt, and the other band was Eye Inside from Montreal. It was a three band night, I believe, and it was a great night. So that was really, really cool. All right, so thank you very much, folks. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to just play a little bit of a clip before we end it, where we spoke about this a little earlier, where all the fans jump on stage and get into the action with us. So I'm just going to play a little bit of that where they're all on stage. Keep in mind that the sound you're hearing from this clip is from somebody with a camera on stage, not somebody that's got the PA and you can hear the full mix and everything. So it's going to sound, all over the place. This is like you're on stage with us at this point.
Exactly right.
So let me try to get to that part of the clip, because I don't want to play the whole song. Okay, there's a bunch of people here. I'm just scrubbing through here so I can see.
Sure.
I think I could start at about, we just played, see where we're at. It's really, the sound is like, it's crazy, because the guy's standing right next to me with a camera, and he's got the snare and the hi-hat ringing in there, and my bass is right next to the camera, and it's probably cranked to 10, I think, at that point of the night, because during the night we tend to turn louder and louder and louder as the energy creeps up, right?
The intensity of the moment will be captured, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, I think from this point on here. All right, cool. All right, let me bring that screen up, and we'll have a quick look at this, and then we'll sign off, and that'll be it. All right, let me see 2UP browser here. So as you can see, all the fans are in there, and the camera guy is now at this point on stage with us. So let's see where we're at.
Don't justify shit. Some of those are workforces. I'm the same the world crosses. Where's my people? I'm a those are workforces. I'm saying the burn. Some of those are workforces. I'm the same the world crosses. Some of those are workforces. I'm the same the world crosses. Jump! do what they told ya. Now you do what they told ya. Now you do what they told ya. Oh, now you do what they told ya. Oh, now you do what they told ya. 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 Always do what they tell ya. Justify. We don't know what else we can choose right. Justify. Those in time. Living the way I think and choosing the way. Don't you try to justify. We don't know what else we can choose right. Justify. Those in time. Living the way. Come on. I want to hear everybody out there for me, alright? Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And I got one reason. You want to know what that reason is? 'Cause I'm fucking. You guys have been awesome. We love you. We are Smeer. Thank you, Ryan Side. You guys have been great. Excellent dancing. Thank you. We are Smeer. Johnny Lights. Yeah. See you around.
All right. There you go.
Good
Tribute
memories,
to our fans.
Good memories, yeah.
Yeah.
The sound quality was ridiculously poor, but the intensity of the show, I think, was not lost on anybody that was there. And hopefully the people that watch it can feel the energy that was there. And there was energy there that night.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And I think that's what I wanted most out of any band that I put together or planned to put together is that energy on stage is what I live for every night that we performed or whatever. If I could walk away from that, any show that we did after something like that, I felt like this is why I'm doing this, and it felt awesome. And I'm so blessed to have experienced it. You know, a lot of folks might say, oh, I'd love to experience that, or they never did or whatever. I never take that part for granted. It's something that I'll remember until I'm long gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, it's there when you make people happy by sharing, a gift of music. And especially for you. I mean, I was a newfie, but for the New Brunswick, like for that kind of homecoming reception for you guys must have been awesome. So that's incredible.
Yes. All right, Neil, I'm going to say thank you very much, man, for joining me. Hopefully we get to do another one of these shows in the near future. Maybe at some point we'll be able to get all four of us in one of these live streams and reminisce with Denny and
That
Ryan.
would be good, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure everybody would have different memories and different versions of the same memories. So, yeah.
Yes, and I think the fans that joined us tonight would love to hear from Ryan and Denny as well, you know, because it's been a long time, and I think folks love them as well. So thank you again, Neil, and wishing you the best moving forward with this COVID situation. Let's hope that we get out of this sooner than later, and that you're back on the drums, rocking the free world, as they would say. Right.
There's a song I might sing that one. Yeah.
There you go. You could try that.
We'll see. All right. And his name's Neil too, right? So there you go.
Perfect. You got yourself a
All
gig.
right, Brian.
All right, so you hang on
Appreciate
there,
you.
Neil, and I'll talk to you in a second. So don't hang up here, and I'm just going to change this.